Hey, Janice.
Hi, Anthony.
My favorite topic. Let's talk about Bitcoin estate planning for 2 of 3 multisig.
All right.
So we're going to be very specific to 2 of 3 multisig today. This is the default recommended multisig quorum. Most of the companies sort of say, okay, if you don't know anything else, just do 2 of 3. So that being said, there must be lots of 2 of 3 multisig situations out there. So let's make sure if you're one of them and you have a 2 of 3 multisig that the plan also works, not just while you're living, but also upon your death, which is kind of what we do, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So there's really 3 areas or 3 things to think about with the estate planning. It's who has your third key, and then how will they access, or how will anyone access keys 1 and 2 upon your death? And maybe would you consider, instead of a 2 of 3, upping the quorum to 2 of 4 or greater, right?
Okay.
All right, so first we're going to go over who has that third key. Okay. So we discussed this quite a bit, actually, in episode 256, where, what was the title of that one? Multi-sig keys for Bitcoin inheritance planning and who should hold them. So really, I'll just kind of recap. The best candidates are a Bitcoin custodial service, such as Casa or Unchained Capital, a professional Bitcoin executor or lawyer who understands Bitcoin custody, OPSEC, and keeping the hardware up to date. Someone like famously me. And then lastly, family or friends. And we discussed the pros and cons of each. Remember, you want to have somebody who's ideally going to have an ongoing and not a static understanding of custody, operational security, and probates and estates. So it's not easy. I'm not proposing that there's any one-shot solution. Bitcoin custody solutions, they have some cost involved, and they probably don't understand the probate process that well. Attorneys and executors, such as myself, we understand probate and executorship very well. But I'm trying my best to keep up to date with Bitcoin, but I'm never going to know as much as a custody service. They have security gurus there, right?
Right. That's all they do, right?
And then even your friends who you love and trust, they might be a Bitcoin guru, but they might not know or even want to be your executor. It's a lot of work. It's a pain.
Yeah.
Or they might, have done their mom's and their aunt's estate, and they're your best friend, but they don't know anything about Bitcoin. So it's hard to find the right fit. Do your best based on your situation. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So then next, again, how to figure out planning for your estate planning for your 2 of 3 multisig. So how are we going to access keys 1 and 2 upon your death? So presumably while you're alive, you have ready access to keys 1 and 2 because that's how you're accessing your own Bitcoin, right? And you're just splitting up your keys so that if somebody steals one, they can't get all your Bitcoin. Or if you lose one, it's not a catastrophic loss. That's the whole point of this 2 of 3. Yep.
Okay.
But remember, since any key is just 1 of 2, you don't have to go to extreme security measures anymore. We used to talk about don't put your key in a safe deposit box because that's actually quite not as secure as you think. People can look in there and see your secret words, for example, if that's what you were putting in there.
Okay.
But if it's only one set of passwords or seed phrase, then even if someone does hijack that, it's not as catastrophic because you need another key for that to be a thieving event. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So if they get the 1, they still don't have the entire seed phrase.
So that means that because your security protocols don't have to be quite as strict, there are some more options on how to share one of your keys 1 or 2 with your third key holder upon your death. With me so far?
I am with you. Yes.
So maybe you just give a seed phrase in its entirety to your friend, right? So okay, let's say you have 2 keys, Janice. Your executor has key 3. And you just give an entire, complete set of your keywords or seed phrase for, let's say, key 2 to your friend, your spouse, or your child. They can't do anything with that because it's only one of.
Because they don't have the other one.
Exactly. Okay. But at least upon your passing, I don't have to. I can just say, hey, husband, or hey, child, did Janice give you anything? And
right. Here, like small little things, or
And they might even be able to write it down or put it in. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend putting it on a device, but it wouldn't be the end of the world not the end of the world. It wouldn't be as risky as if it was your only key.
Correct. Because you still need, so I'm following this, because you still need other parts to the puzzle to access. Got it.
And that's the whole reason why this redundancy makes life a little easier, even if it's a little bit of a pain to set up, right? Because you're not so scared of losing your one set of keys. We've talked about this in the past. You can clone a hardware wallet. So if you have one of those USB looking devices, it is possible to make a duplicate of that and just give that, same as handing up a set of seed phrases. You can hand that second cloned device to your spouse, friend, or child.
Okay. But still, that doesn't contain everything. It just contains some.
Bingo.
Okay. Got it.
You can also put, and we just talked about this, the whole entirety of a seed phrase for key 2 in a safe deposit box. So even if you have a bad actor bank employee, or even if somebody gets the court order, the safe deposit box court order after your passing and sees the whole key phrase, and there's actually witnesses when you open a safe deposit box upon passing, and everyone is like, what are these 24 words? Everyone sees.
Yeah, but this is random.
Yeah, but you have many eyes on your 24 words. That's
Correct.
not great usually, and it's still not great. But at least they can't do anything with just those 24 words.
Correct.
Right. So yeah, maybe that's the best way for you to deliver by having a set in your safe deposit box key 2 to whoever is your holder of key 3. Let's say a professional executor.
Got it. Okay.
One other way that you can do this without. Because you're not as worried, because you're in a multisig, and because you're not as worried about, losing control of one seat, you might actually, again, I don't love this, but you might actually just write 24 words in your will or trust.
Huh.
Right? Because again, having that one key does not.
It's not enough.
Nobody can steal. Again, I don't love any of these, but if you can't think of anything better, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question with that. We've talked about wills and trust and things having to change.
Sure.
Do these phrases change? So if you set it up and you decide a year from now you want totally different new set of words, would you have to rewrite your trust?
Potentially. So what that would mean is, for example, let's say you have 2 keys, and let's just say me as executor has key 3, but oh no, you lost one of your keys. So you have to reset your multisig with a new key 1 for your for your 3 keys.
Okay.
But if the key 1 that you lost was the one that you had written in your will, those words are meaningless now.
Got it.
Because you've swapped it out for a new key.
Okay.
But by the way, if they're in your will, then you wouldn't have to do anything. We could reconstitute. So that doesn't make sense.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes, but yeah.
Because we could, hey, give me my will. I need to redo this thing.
Right. I'm just thinking of the cost associated every time you change your seed phrase to go in and change your will too. That might.
No, that's a good point.
Start to get expensive.
But if it's in your will, that means you have
a
the backup
copy
in your lawyer's safe.
Okay. So you wouldn't have to change that one. All right.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good way to think through it.
Yeah.
But my whole point of this section is that because you're in a multisig, you don't have to go to such extreme measures, and you now may have a little bit more flexibility on how to store backup keys.
Okay.
Okay, last consideration when estate planning for 2 of 3 multisig. Would you consider 2 of 4 or 2 of 5 or maybe something a bigger set for your keys? And the reason I open up that discussion is because I don't like having to rely on access to keys 1 and 2 upon your death. And what I mean by that is, if the user is in possession of keys 1 and 2, and I as executor have key 3, upon your death, there is no immediate access. I have to treasure hunt. I have to find either the original or a copy or a backup of keys 1 or 2. Okay. So there is going to be a hunt. There is a process. Whereas if you have 2 of 4, okay, user has keys 1 and 2 that they're using throughout their lifetime. I have key 3, and one of those services, let's say CASA or Unchained Capital, has key 4. The moment that person passes away and we have a death certificate and we've done all the process, I don't have to do any treasure hunting. Me and CASA or me and Unchained, we have quorum. We have 2 of 4, and we can immediately go through probate. Or not probate. We immediately can have possession of the Bitcoin.
Right.
Does that make it? I think that's an important distinction. That upon death, there is an immediate. We immediately have 2. We don't have to go find a second.
The second, right, yeah. Right. Okay.
And the reason I think this is important, in our experience, we've done so many probates and so many executorships after death. This is not academic for us. We're the ones who sort of clean up the mess afterwards.
Right.
Nothing goes the way it's planned. And I'm not even talking about Bitcoin. I'm talking about we can't find
Everything.
sometimes birth certificates, bank accounts, ATM cards. If you think, oh no, they'll figure it out. Yeah, we do our best, but things just it's a mess sometimes after passing.
Right.
And I'm talking about with stocks, things that are more traditional. If you add on to the layer of complexity that of Bitcoin, I mean, I don't want to be in a situation where it only works if I can find your backup.
Right. And I always equate this to, you have these little things that look like a USB drive or something that small. I always think of it getting thrown in a junk drawer.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know that right there holds the key to your, cryptocurrency and your wealth.
Yeah.
You may not know.
I mean, I would so much rather be in a situation where as long as I know, or, it's set up so that I can either contact CASA or Unchained or whatever the custody service, we have immediate access.
Yeah.
And then as a backup, if my key is broken or if CASA went out of business or something, as a backup, then yes, we can always go to to find the user's key or their backup. That's redundancy.
Too.
If it's relying on me to somehow find one of your keys, I don't feel like that's sufficiently redundant. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's almost like my backup plan is the plan.
Yes. No,
again, this is taking a snapshot at death. During lifetime,
Correct.
It seems to work fine, right?
Right. But this is part of your wealth. This is your legacy. This is what you're leaving, right? And if you can't find it, or, that's a big deal.
No, just there are drawbacks to going 204 or greater. And Michael Flaxman gave me these technical background that I actually still haven't quite wrapped my head around, but I'm trying my best. Number one, setting up a 204 versus a 203 is a bit more complicated, as you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And then while you're alive, this might go over some people's heads, but validating receive addresses is a little bit more complicated with a 204 than it is with a 203. When you want to generate a new address to receive new Bitcoin, if you had a single key or wallet, it's a non-issue. It's very easy, especially with these wallets these days. But in a multi-sig, it gets a little bit more complicated because you want to make sure all the wallets are in agreement that this is a valid receiving address.
Okay.
And then it gets a little bit more complicated if you have a 204 or a much higher set of keys.
Okay.
I don't quite understand the complexities of it. There's something about stateless versus stateful wallets. Anyway. And then lastly, it is a little less private. When you do a high 2 of 3 multi-sigs are sort of common enough that it'll be anonymous if it shows up on the blockchain. If you have something that's a little less common, such as a 2 of 4, a 3 of 6, it'll sort of stand out on the blockchain. That doesn't mean anyone can identify that it's you or that it's your money or how much is on it, but it stands out. And if you're into your privacy, you might not want that. However, with the new Taproot upgrade, which we've talked about in the past, that will basically eliminate that. If I understand correctly, that'll hide whether or not you're a multi-sig or not. So once Taproot propagates, hopefully in the next year or two, then that'll be a non-issue anyway. Okay. So that's it. That was the high-tech part that even I don't understand. Yeah.
Very cool. We're trying out our Bitcoin tipping. There should be a link down there. If you like these topics, maybe leave, a fraction of cents of cryptocurrency just to give us some, momentum to move forward and do some more research and cover these topics.
And I'll be honest, even if we don't get a single set, I'm going to keep doing these because I enjoy it. But.
You love them. You're going to do them anyway. Yeah. Okay.
Well, please let us know comments, questions, just any things that are really bugging you so I can try to help you figure them out. Nothing like actual user questions. But otherwise, thanks for listening. Thanks, Janice, as always. And we will talk next time.
Talk soon.